bienvenue. Welcome once again to another one of my live streams. I'm joined in the virtual studio by Richard C. Pendry of the Risk Consultancy. We decided a while back to debate some of the problems and some of the issues that are currently raising themselves in the public forum, which affect safety, which affect common decency, and which affect the normal accepted running of public life. And one of the ones that came to mind recently was the case of Mike Freer. Mike Freer, an MP for a number of years, who's been in and out of Parliament, most recently in, I think, for Barnet, North London, has stepped down, citing as a primary reason for doing so safety concerns over a constant stream of incidents, including death threats, even a suspected arson attack over Christmas, a close encounter with danger and potential death from Ali Harbi Ali, who later went on to murder Southend West MP Sir David Arness. It was only by sheer luck that Freer had been moved from the Whip's office to court inequalities the night before, which meant he wasn't there at the time. Advocacy and abuse. Freer has been an outspoken defender of Israel. I'm not getting into that today, whether Israel are right or wrong or whatever, but the fact that he was exercising his ability to have free speech and speak his mind made him a target for abuse and threats. And finally, family concerns. Obviously, this onslaught of abuse was weighing heavily upon him and his family, and he wanted that to end. Now, the question is there an erosion of the standards of public life such that we are allowed to say these things about politicians? My God, when I was a kid, and I'm not trying to say, when I was young, everything was great. It wasn't. But when I was a kid, you wouldn't have thought of saying such things to an MP. The same way as you wouldn't have thought saying such things to a copper. It's just unthinkable. But here we are in 2024, when throwing epithets, calling them names, and being absolutely intensely awful to MPs and public figures online is considered to be almost normal, dare I say it. Richard, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, and it's lovely to be here on Friday afternoon again, Gareth, just before we finish for the weekend. Now, just to let you know, I mean, the risk consultancy, okay, I've been involved in the security and the risk business since 2005. One of the things that I also do as part of my portfolio of jobs is I'm an associate trainer for the Houses of Parliament. And I provide close protection to members of Parliament. And I also provide them with situational awareness and personal security training to keep them safe. And the reason that is happening now is because of the two incidents regarding the murder of two members of Parliament, Joe Cox in 2016, and as you've already mentioned, Sir David Ames in 2021. And yes, you are correct in saying that the murderer for David Ames actually went to Mike Freer's constituency office, and
that was his intention.
That was his intention. He was looking for a soft target, and luckily for Freer, he wasn't there at the time, and the perpetrator went off to another area. So I'm talking from with a great deal of experience regarding this. But when we look at the comments of Mike Freer, over the 14 years that he's been a member of Parliament, he has seen, and I have also, as I talk to MPs on a regular basis, they have also seen an increase in online abuse to them, online threats. And there's a department in the Houses Department, the Security Department, that actually does this. It does the online, it does the research for online threats and stuff like that. But I think it comes down to the constituencies, the general public some might feel that there's a broken psychological contract between us and the people, the elected representatives that we are putting in place to run this amazing country of Great Britain.
I think the issue a lot is that the contract that we originally had, this implicit contract, that we are effectively allowing them to be our representatives and hence create, administer, and judge rules, laws, and structures that we live within as our representatives, is perhaps not fit for purpose. And what I mean by that is it needs to come with instruction on how you address, deal with, and interact with these people. The assumption was made until now that that was implicit, that when we were brought up, we understood they were not necessarily our betters, but they were doing their best to represent us. And therefore, we should give them the respect that is due someone in that great position, not so much of power, but of responsibility. But instead now it just seems to mark them out as a target for verbal abuse and hatred. And
well, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, they to a certain extent they are culpable for this, because they can be their worst enemies. And
absolutely,
when you've got somebody like the deputy leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner, calling Tory scum, I mean that is not nice. That's
incitement.
That's incitement. That's toxic. Okay, and what you then have is people picking up on this. But when we look back, this case, Mike Freer, these threats are coming from Islamic extremists. Okay, right, and we've got to look at this cancel culture, which has increased greatly within our society. Okay, cancel culture. If I don't agree with what you're saying, I'm going to shout you down. But when you have the assassin's veto on that, is that if you say something which I don't agree with, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And that is scary. That is scary. And we've seen it. Yeah, we've seen it with Joe Cox with the right wing. Again, I'm not saying that all Muslims are terrorists. Absolutely not. But it's the case that most terrorists are Muslims. And that's the way it's coming. And we have got, with this current situation in Gaza and with the Houthis in Yemen, we have a polarization between people who support the Palestinians and people who support are pro-Israel, like the Conservative government, and the Labour Party is behind Israel. Okay, and that's it. That's a fact of thing. Hamas has been designated as a terrorist organization. Hamas has elements of ISIS, Daesh within their ranks. And for somebody like me, who was involved in the Battle of Mosul in 2016, 2017, and saw the horrendous way that Islamic State actually, the brutality subjected on the population within Mosul during those times, is I don't understand it. You have the LGBTQ community behind Hamas. Do they not realize that homosexuality is haram within an Islamic society? And you will be killed.
Punishable by stoning.
Let me give you an example of this. Which was so heartbreaking. I worked for the United Nations in Afghanistan. I had a lot of Afghan colleagues who were also working for the United Nations. After the weekend, I had two local guys, two UN staff members, come back from a weekend away in their local province. And they were talking about this thing that had gone on. And I said, well, what happened on the weekend? Oh, we stoned to death a homosexual man. I said, I'm sorry, can you? Oh, yeah. We knew he was a homosexual. So what happened was, first of all, they tipped a wall on this man, and then we all came around and stoned him to death. These are members of the United Nations. Okay. And I was just, wow, I can't cope with this. You know, that is the mentality that we're talking about. Okay.
Right. It's hard to deal with groups of people who are existing on such different planes of existence to yourself, not better or worse, just different. And it's difficult to change your thinking. But I'm not one to assign these words without thought, but that's almost a medieval attitude and approach. You know, we don't like it, we don't want it, so we will kill it. And I'm without words at that sort of people. It's like, how do you argue with something so alien?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's coming into our society. Okay, so I've worked for the last 20 years. I've worked in all over Africa. Okay, Middle East, North Africa, Iraq, Syria. You know, I studied Arabic in Syria, and I love the Arabic culture. You know, the language and all the rest of it. But the thing is that dysfunctionality, that disrespect for the rule of law, these things that I associate with these different countries that I've visited, I am now seeing manifest itself in the UK. Right. Yeah, and as I said, Simon Wheaton, for evil to flourish, good men need to just do nothing. And I'm sorry, I'm a person who has always stood up for his convictions, and yeah, it's got me into trouble sometime, but I'm not prepared to go unspoken and heard when I can see things happening.
Right. It's upsetting, frankly.
But the other thing is, right, let's not just hold it at politicians. If your company, and I see this a lot within my own consultancy, what I do is I provide information for different businesses. So if your business has a contact or has an association with a different company that might be supplying Israel or whatever, you could well be a target indirectly. And the executives that work for these companies can also be a target. So this is mission creep. Yeah, we've got a mission creep going on here with people. Again, it all comes down to the cancel culture. Yeah, and you and I are fervent believers in free speech. Yes, I might not like what you say, but you know what? I support your right to say that. Absolutely, absolutely. And yet, we with the cancel culture, we can't say it. We can't say it. I mean, my son went to Oxford. He went to Pembroke College, and you know, he goes along to the students' union and things like that. And now they used to be incredible at inviting, you know, Griffin, the extreme right wing guy. He was invited there, and all the rest of it. Yeah, and so we should be. We need to hear what he's saying. We need to hear what he's saying, and then we can counter that. But to actually say no, can't do that. You know, it's yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying. But there is a fine line, and we spoke about this briefly off air. There's freedom to talk about any topic, but when you malign someone based on that topic, when you weaponize the words to use them to denigrate or desecrate someone else, that's when you cross a line.
You do. I would never.
Speech. There may be freedom of speech, but there's not freedom to malign.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's the whole point. Is that what you have at the moment is people weaponizing things. They are weaponizing free speech. They are threatening people online. Okay, and to the extent that they feel that their life is in danger and that they can no longer carry on with the job of representing their constituents in the government. And I think that's just shocking. That is third world. Okay, that is something that I would expect to see in Africa. Yeah, but in the UK, come on. We really need to take notice of this.
I just think that we need to be instilling in people some of the skills that you talk about so often, which is to be able to check out a situation or surroundings so you can establish risk in your mind. That if you are going to speak freely, and one should be able to at all times, you need to be clear who you're talking to, and at least have a way out, to make sure that you're not such a soft target. But also that when you do speak fervently about something, that you come across purely to get your point across, not to attack any particular member of society. Because I think as soon as you do that, you lose the argument anyway. And unfortunately, we have to remain as higher powered as we can be. We have to always be taking the high road. We have to always, we cannot, as soon as we go down to the point whereby we're attacking people because they are attacking us, then we're no better than they are.
Well, what I would say is that you really need, all of us, we really need to look at where we're getting our information from. Where are we getting our news from?
You've told me this a number of times.
You can't live in an echo chamber. You have to read around the subject. So, yeah, BBC, GB News, Al Jazeera, ITV, Fox News, CNN. I look at all these because I want to get, and then I look at other stuff that's on the social platforms. But I need to be able to read around the subject to be able to get a really good understanding of it. If you go to the same news all the time and you're just taking that and you're talking to the same people on your Facebook page or whatever, you're living in an echo chamber. Please break away from that. And I think I mentioned it previously. Somebody that was following me on Twitter said, "Why are you actually? Why are you following this person?" And what's his name? The left-wing guy. I'm terrible with names as I get older. But he's a very outspoken left. And I said, "Well, I want to hear what he's saying." My follow of him isn't a support of what he's saying. Right. I need to find out so I can look at it and be critical about what he is saying. Okay. Owen Jones. Yeah, Owen Jones. There we are. I follow Owen Jones. Yeah. And because I want to find out what he's saying and I want to find out where he gets it from. And from that, I'm able to make a decision on whether he's credible or not. Yeah, okay, we won't go there. But you see what I'm saying? You have to be able to look at what other people are saying.
I have to say it's the same reason why I read from time to time the Sun newspaper and the Daily Mail and also the Times and the Guardian. I try and do it on different weeks, but I want to get a general sense of what other people who may not think the same way as I do are thinking, because that way I can get a sense otherwise it makes no sense to me what goes on in public life. I need to have a sense of what's going on.
Do you know what, Gareth? We're going out to all these different platforms. Can you, if you don't agree with what we're saying, what I've said, then please, I want to know about it. I want to know what you're, what I want to know your opinion.
I also watch input from Rumble, for instance, which is an alternative platform. Because otherwise, how can you get a balanced view if you don't listen to both sides?
But the other thing, I mean, I love these chats on a Friday, a bit of a rant. It's not a rant, we're not ranting, it's not a diatribe. It's there. If anybody's got anything that they'd like us to talk about next week, I think we need to do something, topical. We haven't spoken about the by-election today and we haven't talked about that. I think
I'd rather talk about the effect of it after it's complete.
Yeah. What does concern me. what does concern me is the low turnout rates. Because the
Now
thing is,
that's a big problem.
how can we have a true representation of a democracy if you're only getting 30% of the people turning out? It's not representative. And what you then have is that real nucleus, the ones that are always going to vote and come out, and they are the activists. They will come out and they will take over. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. I mean, so much negativity around Sadiq Khan, okay, and how bad he is for London, okay. But let's see what happens in May, because unless people get off and get out and start voting, he's going to be there again.
All right. So, well, look, I would say thank you for spending time with me today, Richard. It's always a pleasure on a Friday. There's so many of these topics that we could turn our concern onto, but we'll work through them. As Richard said, please come back in touch with us. I know there's a natural reticence for people to actually put comments on these things, but what I would say is get in contact with Richard or myself, and if there are topics you want us to cover, then please just put them forward. And all I would say is thank you once again, Richard, for a very enjoyable discussion, not a diatribe, as you said, or bashing on a soapbox. But I think as two concerned citizens of this great land, we need to take a view, and we need to be adult and point out the truth. The emperor has no clothes. We might as well point it out. The sooner we do, the sooner the emperor can stop being cold. Anyway, moving on. I wish everybody a wonderful weekend, and of course, safe mental health. Until next week. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.